I've lost count of how many times a client has told me their two dogs are inseparable best friends, only to watch one of them go stiff as a board the second I pull out treats during a nail trim. That tension, it's been there all along. Most owners just haven't learned to see it yet. My name is Jasmine Caldwell, and I've spent nearly a decade as a professional pet groomer working with dogs of every breed and temperament you can imagine. Plus, I live with 4 rescue dogs who've taught me more about pack dynamics than any textbook ever could. You're listening to Total Pet Parent Podcast. Quick note before we get started. Everything you're about to hear is researched, written, and verified by actual humans with real expertise, but the voice delivering it is AI generated, so I wanted to be upfront about that. If you've been listening for a while, thanks for being here. You're the reason I keep doing this. And if this is your first episode, welcome aboard. We drop new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so there's always something new. All right, here's what we're getting into today. The question of why pets fight over food lands in my inbox almost as often as questions about matting. And here's the thing, it's not about aggression or one animal being mean. It's survival instinct colliding head-on with modern multi-pet living. Whether you've got dogs, cats, or a mixed household, understanding resource competition changes everything about how you structure feeding time, hand out treats, and organize your entire home. So let's start with the basics. Resource guarding is the behavioral pattern where animals defend access to valuable items. We're talking food, treats, toys, sleeping spots, even your attention. In a home with multiple pets, this shows up as growling near food bowls, blocking access to the water dish, snapping when another pet gets too close during treat time, or physically blocking favorite resting areas with their body. Food competition is the specific piece of this that focuses on edible resources. The range is huge. On the subtle end, you've got one dog eating noticeably faster when another dog is in the room. On the overt end, you've got hissing, lunging, actual biting. I watch this with my own 4 rescues every single day. My terrier mix, Biscuit, will absolutely inhale his kibble in 30 seconds flat if my senior shepherd, Maple, wanders within 6 feet of his bowl. He's not being aggressive about it, he just knows that food is finite and another dog might want it. And this behavior isn't limited to dogs, by the way. Cats display resource guarding through territorial spray marking near food areas, blocking other cats from getting to bowls, or flat out refusing to eat unless they're completely alone. Small animals like rabbits and guinea pigs will box, nip, or chase cage mates away from hay piles and pellet dishes. Even in aquarium settings, dominant fish chase subordinates away from feeding zones. Here's what I need you to understand. Resource guarding is normal. It's not a moral failing. It's not a sign your pets secretly hate each other. It's evolutionary logic, plain and simple. Animals who protected their food survived long enough to reproduce. Animals who shared freely often didn't make it. Now, let's talk about how resource competition actually works in multi-pet households. The mechanics trace back to perceived scarcity and social hierarchy. Even when you're providing plenty of food, more than enough for everyone, your pet's brains are running calculations shaped by thousands of years of survival pressure. In canine social structures, both wild and domestic, access to resources establishes and reinforces rank. A higher-ranking dog eats first, gets the best sleeping spot, controls access to resources. Your dogs aren't sitting around planning this consciously, but their behavior absolutely reflects it. I watch this play out every single day with my crew. Maple, the senior, eats slowly and deliberately. Biscuit eats like a vacuum cleaner. My 2 middle dogs, Clover and Scout, watch each other constantly, adjusting their pace based on who finishes first. That's hierarchy happening in real time. Cats operate differently. They're not true pack animals, so feline resource competition is more about territory than rank. A cat who guards food is often saying, "This zone is mine," rather than "I'm in charge." That's why cats in multi-cat homes often develop preferred feeding stations and will absolutely refuse to eat if another cat invades that space. I've groomed plenty of cats whose owners report they only eat in the basement or only on top of the washing machine, always somewhere away from the other cat. Trigger stacking makes competition worse. If your dog is already anxious, maybe there's a new person in the house, construction noise outside, recent vet visit, their threshold for food guarding drops. The same dog who normally tolerates another pet nearby might snap over a treat when they're already stressed. I saw this constantly during the pandemic. Dogs who'd been fine for years suddenly started guarding because their routines completely shattered and everything felt uncertain. Cross-species households add another layer of complexity. Dogs and cats don't speak the same body language. A dog playbow looks threatening to a cat. A cat's slow blink, which signals affection, means absolutely nothing to a dog. These communication gaps around food can escalate conflict fast. A dog doesn't understand that a cat's hiss is a last resort warning. Many dogs just see it as noise and keep approaching. That's why introducing a new cat to a dog becomes so critical to preventing long-term resource battles. Food value hierarchy matters too. Most pets won't guard their regular kibble, but will absolutely defend high-value items: wet food, freeze-dried treats, bones, anything novel. My dogs ignore each other during regular meals, but if I bring home a bully stick, every single one of them suddenly becomes hyper-aware of who got what. Moving on to why understanding food competition actually matters for your household. Recognizing resource dynamics isn't just academic, it directly affects your pet's stress levels, physical safety, and quality of life. Chronic stress from food competition suppresses immune function, disrupts digestion, and shortens lifespans. A dog who rushes through meals because they fear another pet will steal their food is at higher risk for bloat, which is a life-threatening condition, especially in deep-chested breeds like Shepherds and Great Danes. I've cleaned up the aftermath of serious food fights. The injuries aren't always obvious from across the room. Puncture wounds hide under fur, and cats can do shocking damage with their back claws during a scuffle. Veterinary treatment for bite wounds runs into hundreds of dollars, and that's not counting the behavioral fallout. Once pets have a serious altercation over food, that association sticks. They'll be tense around each other during meals for months, sometimes permanently. Behavioral degradation spreads beyond feeding time. Pets who compete over food often start competing over everything: doorways, toys, your lap. The terrier I mentioned earlier, Biscuit, came to me as a foster with severe food aggression after living in a hoarding situation where 10 dogs fought over a single bowl. It took 18 months of separate feeding, slow desensitization, and consistent routine before he'd eat calmly with another dog in the room. That early competition poisoned his trust, and it leaked into every other interaction. For multi-pet households, these dynamics shape your entire management strategy. The fundamentals of multi-pet household management start with feeding protocols, because food is the most consistently high-value resource. Get feeding right, and you've eliminated the single biggest source of daily conflict. The human factor matters too. Watching your pets fight is stressful. I've had clients in tears because their 2 dogs, who used to cuddle, now can't be in the same room during treat time. That guilt and frustration affect how you interact with your animals. You start hesitating to give treats, or you avoid having friends over because you can't manage both dogs when there's excitement. Understanding that resource competition is normal and manageable takes the emotional weight off. You're not failing, you're just dealing with biology. Now let's get into the types and variations of resource competition. Direct guarding is the most recognizable form. The pet physically positions themselves between the resource and potential competitors. Dogs will stand over their bowl, stiffen their body, lower their head, and track other animals with hard eye contact. Cats will hunch over their dish, flatten their ears, and growl, a sound many cat owners have never heard because solo cats rarely vocalize that way. Small animals, like guinea pigs, will rumble strut, puffing up and chattering their teeth while blocking access to vegetables. Indirect competition is subtler and often gets missed completely. This is when pets alter their eating behavior based on others' presence without any overt aggression. A subordinate dog might wait until the dominant dog finishes before approaching their own full bowl. A cat might eat only at 3 in the morning when the other cats are asleep. I've seen rabbits who refuse pellets entirely if another rabbit is eating, even from a separate bowl across the cage. Owners often interpret this as picky eating when it's actually social stress. Proximity sensitivity varies by individual. Some pets are fine sharing space as long as bowls are 3 feet apart. Others need separate rooms. My senior shepherd will eat next to any of my other dogs except Biscuit. Something about his energy sets her on edge. We've had them for 4 years, and that boundary hasn't shifted. I've stopped trying to force it. Separate feeding for those two, shared space for the others. That's the reality of managing multiple individuals with different thresholds. Seasonal and situational variation also plays a role. Intact males, both dogs and cats, often intensify resource guarding during breeding seasons due to hormonal surges. Pregnant and nursing females become fiercely protective of food. Their caloric needs skyrocket, and their instinct to protect offspring extends to resources. Senior pets with cognitive decline sometimes develop new guarding behaviors because they're confused about resource availability. Maple, my 13-year-old shepherd, has started hovering near her bowl between meals, even though I've fed her twice daily for 6 years. Her routine hasn't changed, but her brain's certainty about it has. Species-specific patterns show up in mixed households. Dogs tend towards social hierarchy models and respond to structure, feeding order, designated bowls, clear routines. Cats lean territorial and respond to spatial separation, multiple feeding stations, vertical space, privacy. Small mammals often need both, separate feeding areas and enough resources that hierarchy becomes irrelevant. If you're managing dogs and cats together, the strategies for feeding multiple pets separately require blending both approaches rather than applying one species model to both. Let's get practical. Start with physical separation during meals. This is non-negotiable in high-conflict households. Separate rooms, crate and rotate, or baby gates create spatial boundaries that prevent competition before it starts. I feed my 4 dogs in a staggered line along my kitchen, Maple at one end near the pantry, Scout and Clover about 4 feet apart in the middle, Biscuit in a corner facing away from everyone. This took trial and error. I originally had Biscuit near the doorway, but he couldn't settle because he was tracking movement. The corner solved it. For cats, vertical separation works better than horizontal. Feed one cat on a counter, another on the floor, a third on top of the refrigerator. Cats feel secure when they can eat from elevated positions, and it naturally creates space without requiring multiple rooms. Consistent routine eliminates uncertainty. Feed at the same times daily, in the same locations, with the same bowls. Predictability reduces anxiety. My dogs know that dinner happens when I get home from the shop, in the same order. Maple first because she's senior, then Scout, Clover, and Biscuit. They wait at their spots now. That wasn't automatic, it took months, but routine built the pattern. Portion control and simultaneous feeding prevent some competition. If every pet gets their meal at the same time, no one is watching another eat while they wait. Use measuring cups or a kitchen scale to ensure portions are consistent. I've had clients discover their food aggression problems stemmed from one dog getting visibly more food than another, even if both portions were appropriate for their size.
High-value items require stricter management. Bones, bully sticks, stuffed Kongs, anything that lasts more than 5 minutes should be given in completely separate spaces with doors closed. Even pets who tolerate each other during regular meals will guard long-duration chews. I learned this the hard way when Scout stole a frozen Kong from Clover, and Clover actually snapped at her, the only time she's ever done that. Now, high-value treats happen in crates or separate rooms, no exceptions. Desensitization training helps moderate cases. This involves gradually reducing the distance between pets during feeding over weeks or months, rewarding calm behavior and backing off at the first sign of tension. I don't recommend this without guidance from a certified dog trainer or veterinary behaviorist, especially if you've already had physical altercations. The risk of making things worse is real. Specialized equipment can help in specific situations. Automatic feeders with microchip readers prevent bowl stealing by only opening for the designated pet. Slow feeder bowls reduce the vacuum eating behavior that often signals competition stress. Puzzle feeders can redirect food motivation into mental work rather than guarding. Check the show notes for links to current pricing on those. Monitor body conditions separately. In competitive households, subordinate pets sometimes don't get enough food, or dominant pets steal extras. Weigh each animal monthly using a pet scale or by weighing yourself holding them, then subtract your weight. Track trends. A subordinate dog losing weight might be getting out-competed even if you think you're feeding enough. The multi-pet home safety framework extends beyond feeding to include water access, resting areas, and doorway management, all potential flashpoints for resource competition that owners often overlook until there's a problem.
Now, managing resources beyond food. Water competition is real, but often invisible. Dominant pets will sometimes block access to water bowls or only drink after subordinate pets. Multiple water stations prevent this, one per pet plus one extra, distributed across your home. I keep 6 water bowls for 4 dogs because Scout will guard the one in the bedroom hallway but ignores the others. 6 bowls solved a problem I didn't even know existed until Biscuit started drinking almost nothing and became dehydrated. Toys follow similar patterns. Some pets guard toys they never even play with, just to control the resource. Clover does this with tennis balls. She doesn't fetch, doesn't chew them, just collects them in her bed and growls if another dog approaches. I've stopped leaving toys out. Toys now come out during supervised play sessions and go away when I'm done. That reduced daily tension significantly. Attention and affection are resources too. When I sit on the couch, Maple claims the spot next to me, and Scout waits on the floor. If I call Scout up, Maple stiffens. I've started doing separate couch time with each dog to avoid triggering that tension. Same with grooming. I groom my own dogs one at a time in separate rooms, door closed, because the sound of brushing excites the others and creates barrier frustration. Entry and exit control matters in multi-pet homes. Some pets will body block doorways or stairs to control movement. This is resource guarding stretched to spatial access. Baby gates that create multiple pathways or training a solid move cue can help. But again, that's behavior modification work that takes consistency. Managing multiple pet veterinary care touches on resource dynamics indirectly. Pets who compete at home often become aggressive or shut down with vet waiting room when other animals are present. That stress compounds, making routine care harder. Let's hit some frequently asked questions. First one, why do pets fight over food even when there's plenty for everyone? Pets fight over food because their survival instincts respond to perceived scarcity, not actual abundance. Even with full bowls available, their evolutionary programming treats food as a limited resource worth defending. This is especially true for dogs and cats who experienced resource scarcity before you adopted them.
Rescue animals from hoarding situations, strays, or mill backgrounds often carry that competition drive for life, regardless of how consistently you provide meals. The brain's threat detection system doesn't easily unlearn scarcity patterns. Next, is resource guarding the same as aggression or dominance?
Resource guarding is a specific, context-dependent behavior, not a personality trait or dominance statement. A dog can be perfectly friendly during play and walks, but guard their food bowl because that situation triggers different instincts. The dominance theory, the idea that dogs are constantly trying to be alpha over you, has been discredited by modern behavioral science from researchers at institutions like the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior. What looks like dominance is usually resource control based on perceived value and past experience, not a desire to rule the household. Can food aggression between pets be fixed completely? Management is more realistic than fixing in most cases. You can reduce intensity, increase thresholds, and prevent incidents through separation, routine, and desensitization, but the underlying instinct rarely disappears entirely. I've lived with Biscuit for 4 years using careful protocols, and he's dramatically better, but I still wouldn't trust him loose with another dog and a raw bone. That's fine. Management works. Perfect trust isn't the goal. Safe, low-stress coexistence is. Some dogs and cats will never be comfortable eating together, and forcing it creates more problems than it solves. Should I feed my pets from separate bowls or let them share? Always use separate bowls, one per pet, even if they seem fine sharing. Sharing creates unpredictable competition and makes it impossible to monitor individual intake. If one pet develops a health issue requiring medication or dietary change, you'll need separate feeding anyway, so establishing that pattern early prevents future conflict. Bowl material matters too. Stainless steel is easiest to sanitize and doesn't harbor bacteria like plastic. For multi-pet households managing different diets, puppy formula, senior food, prescription diets, separate bowls with clear spatial boundaries are non-negotiable. How do I stop one pet from stealing another's food? Physical separation during feeding is the most reliable solution. Feed in separate rooms, crates, or behind baby gates, so stealing isn't physically possible. For pets who finish at different speeds, pick up bowls immediately when each animal finishes rather than leaving them down for grazing. Microchip-activated feeders prevent bowl raiding by only opening for the registered pet, which works well for cats and small dogs in households where separation isn't practical. Check the show notes for a link to current pricing on those. Training a solid stay or place cue helps, but it requires consistent reinforcement and won't work in your absence or during high excitement. Living with the reality of resource competition. The first time I saw Biscuit actually relax during a meal, about 8 months after I fostered him, I realized how much invisible stress he'd been carrying. His shoulders dropped, his breathing slowed, he stopped tracking movement across the room. That shift didn't come from forcing him to get over it, it came from respecting his need for space, routine, and predictability. Why pets fight over food isn't a mystery that needs solving, it's biology we need to accommodate. Your management strategy should match your specific animal's thresholds, not some ideal of what multi-pet harmony should look like. Separate feeding stations, consistent routines, high-value treat protocols, and spatial boundaries aren't failures of training, they're intelligent responses to hardwired instinct. My 4 dogs will probably never eat from a shared community bowl, and that's perfectly fine. They're healthy, calm during meals, and nobody's getting hurt. That's success in a multi-pet home. That wraps up this episode of Total Pet Parent Podcast. Thanks for listening. New episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you'll always have something fresh. If you got something out of this episode, leaving a 5-star rating and a quick review actually makes a huge difference. It's how other people find the show when they're searching for help with their own pets. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe or follow so you get a notification the second a new episode goes live. I'll catch you next time.